All right, we're going to go ahead and kick things off here. Thank you everybody for joining. I'm Jake Alexander from Action Accounting. We're going to go ahead and get started on our Know Your Numbers, Grow Your Business event. If you're used to joining us for these, this is a little bit different from what we're typically talking about on our monthly webinar series. A lot of times these are gauged towards tax strategy, how to save money on taxes, how to keep more money in your pockets. This one's going to be a little bit different. So we're going to talk about your numbers. We're going to talk about proper bookkeeping, a little bit of consulting, and we're going to do a deeper dive into exactly what that means. And ideally, by the end of this, you have a better idea of how to keep more money in your pockets by understanding the value that having good bookkeeping can bring to you. So we'll go ahead and kick things off here. We always start with a little bit of an overview just so everybody knows what to expect. We always start off with an intro, just a little bit about your host. That's me. I'm Jake Alexander from Action Accounting. This event isn't about me, but I always think at the end of the day, it's nice that I'm not some perfect stranger up here talking to everyone. So quick intro on me. Then we'll go over to the basics. When it comes to this stuff, when it comes to knowing your numbers so you can grow your business, it's really about having a really solid infrastructure. So we're going to kind of start there, pretty basic stuff, talk a little bit about organization, just really simple ways to get everything organized and set up for success. We're going to go into clarification, so clarify a few items and just provide a little bit of clarity there. Then really incorporation of, okay, now that I'm organized, I know exactly what's going on. How do I actually incorporate this stuff into my books or into my daily life to help me understand my business better? So we'll do a little bit of the basics. From there, we'll go into a deeper dive, talk a little bit about KPIs, some measurable data, and most importantly, where do we go from here? So we're going to have all the information. We're going to know exactly what we need to do. What are some actionable steps, some next steps of things we can do to get us moving forward. And then last but certainly not least, we always save time for Q&A at the end. We book these events for an hour. Typically, the content portion of it is somewhere between 25 and 35 minutes, depending on how fast I talk and get through this stuff. But the last thing we want to do is bore anybody or put you to sleep. So we always save time for question and answer at the ends. I would encourage you to, if you have questions throughout the event, pop them up as they come in your head. That way you don't forget anything. If it's something pertaining to the actual topic we're talking about it, we may or may not sort of pause and answer it right there. If we don't, I promise we'll get to them all at the end. That kind of brings me to a little bit of housekeeping too. You probably noticed this is a little bit different version of Zoom than you're used to. When we do these events, it's not the typical meeting version of Zoom where everybody's face comes up and people can come off mute and ask questions. We do that for a reason. If you ever been on a Zoom meeting where 2 or 3 people come off mute and all try to start talking at the same time, you know from experience it can quickly go off of the rails. In respect of everyone's time, we wanted to keep everything clear and concise. And so I say all that to say we still do want to interact with you throughout the course of the event, but you got to use the Q&A box. So if you look down at the bottom, there'll still be the chat box that you're probably used to, but that's not going to work for this event. You need to go over to the right. There's probably a little 3 dots section that says more, like a little 3 dots icon. If you click that, you click Q&A, you should be able to type in there. So if you have questions, type them in there. If you want to make sure it works right now, you can type in like your first name and where you're from. That way we know everybody knows where to find it and everybody knows where to type in questions. So I would encourage you to type something into the Q&A box just so you know how to use it. When you have questions, you have things come up, that's where you're going to do it there. I would encourage you to interact as much as possible, ask as many questions as possible so we can keep things moving along. So that's just a little bit about that right there. We got Patty from Clearwater. Hey, Patty, thanks for joining us. Awesome to have you here. So that's where the Q&A box is. Type your questions in there as everything comes along. And yes, we will send out the recording afterwards too. So, all right, that's just a little bit of overview. I'll go an intro, quick introduction about me and our business. I'm Jake Alexander. Action Accounting is the name of our business. We've been around since 2016. Started off just me out of the spare bedroom of the apartment. Type deal. We've grown the company to where it is now. We've got 10 employees and contractors that we work with on a daily basis. We have clients all over the country and filed just under 1,000 tax returns last year. So thank you to everyone. If you're joining us here and you are an existing client, we appreciate the support. If you're a potential new client or referral partner, we appreciate the support as well. And so just a little quick outline about our business. We have four main departments. We have a bookkeeping department, which is what we're going to spend a majority of today talking about, actually, is the value of proper bookkeeping. And there's really two sides to bookkeeping, in my opinion. There's the compliance side, where you do it because you have to, right? Like, a lot of business owners don't understand, when you sign up to go start your own business, you're required to keep track of all of your income and all of your expenses, so you can then do a tax return and report to the IRS how much money you made throughout the course of the year. So there's a whole compliance side of it where you just have to do it, right? But then there's a reason where you should want to do it, and that's the data, the measurable insights into your business. That's the making informed decision side of it, and that's what we're going to really dive into today. A majority of what we do with our clients who work with us from a bookkeeping standpoint is we spend time helping them dive into their P&Ls, helping them customize them, and turn them into valuable reports that are going to give them information to make informed business decisions moving forward. So that's the majority of what we're going to spend the time talking about today. Then we have a tax prep department. These folks are very popular this time of year. So right now, the tax preparation department is getting inundated because everyone's mailboxes are full of W-2s and 1099s and 1098s and K1s and all of those documents that you're getting from last year's activity. So all those 2024 tax prep documents are flooding your inbox and your mailbox. You want to send them over to us, so our tax prep department can do our best to get everything filed as timely and as compliant there for you. I do like to highlight here, so we'll talk about tax planning in just a sec, but the biggest difference between tax planning and tax preparation, because a lot of people ask us that, is in tax preparation, it's a retroactive activity, right? So like right now in 2025, we're filing the paperwork for all the activity that already happened back in 2024. And so it's really important to think about that, because the way you experience true tax savings is by doing tax planning, which is the polar opposite. It's a proactive experience, right? And so instead of us now at the last minute rushing together to try to get everything together and sort of hoping for the best outcome in tax planning, we're starting right now. So we're starting in Q1 of 2025 to plan for things that we can do to legally and morally reduce that tax bill as much as possible. And so I always like to highlight the difference there, just to make sure everyone has a good understanding of that. And then we have our business consulting department. So this is our newest department, where we help business owners put systems and processes in place to help them turn their business into an actual business. And so there, if you yourself are struggling as a business owner, or you feel like there's just something that's not quite clicking or not quite making sense, we would love to have a consultation there and help you through those as well. And so those are the main departments of our business. You can always reach us at our website, which is actionaccountingusa.com, or follow us on all the big social media channels. And so that's just a quick introduction to me and our business. That way we're all not perfect strangers. Real quick too, not to back up, but I saw we had a few other people jump in. I just want to make sure you know, to interact with us during the event, you can use the Q&A box down there. So the chat will be disabled, but if you have questions throughout the event, I would encourage you to type them in that Q&A box. We'll make sure we get everything answered either live when you type it in, or worst case at the end. We always build in plenty of time for Q&A at the end. And so, all right, so that's just a little overview, a little intro of what we got going. Let's talk about the basics, right? We're going to start off real basic here, but there's a reason for it. You got to have a good infrastructure in place when you start doing this stuff, so we know exactly how everything is going to work. The number one rule is we want to get organized. So we need a separate bank account for the business. That's right. It can't be, everything can't be commingled through your personal account, or, I'm pretty good at running most of the stuff through the business bank account, but every once in a while I'll use my personal account or my wife's personal account. You want to get away from that completely. We want to have a separate business bank account that's 100% used for business, for all income, for all expenses coming out of the business. The next one is separate credit cards. So we hear this all the time. We have clients, and I'm going to use a few client examples and stuff like that throughout the course of this event. I promise we're in the trust tree here, so by no means am I trying to poke fun or anything like that. I just use things as an examples that we see on a pretty regular basis, and we bring it up in hopes to help everybody out. And so Separate credit cards. So we have clients all the time. They say, man, Jake, on my personal credit card, I get like 3% cash back or whatever. And that's just more than I can find on the business credit cards. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you don't want to use any personal credit cards in the business. You want to have 100% separate business bank accounts, 100% separate credit cards. And we want to get to a point where we're using true accounting software. We want to get away from the spreadsheets. We want to get away from that pile of receipts in the shoebox, and then we're going through everything at the end of the year and trying to total it up. We want to get to a point where we're using true accounting software. QuickBooks Online is our preferred software. All of our bookkeepers in our company are certified QuickBooks Online certified pro advisors. There's a bunch of different softwares out there. QuickBooks Online is true accounting software, so it can do everything that we need on our end to be able to help you as much as possible. And so if you have a business that has inventory, or if we want to track things by department or by class, we can do that. And it's also got all the balance sheet capabilities on there. So I know it's pretty basic to get started with, but we want to have everything totally separated, and we want to have some really good accounting software set up to sync with it and track all that activity going in there. And so, okay, from there, we want to get clarification. We want to talk about products and services, right? The first question is how many do you have? So every business is a little bit different, right? Some businesses have 300 products and services. Some businesses have one. On average, it's usually going to be somewhere between like 8 and a dozen from what we've seen, depending on the size of your business, right? And how many locations and how many departments and those sort of things. But we want to start to clarify how many products and services do we really have? And out of those ones, which ones are the most profitable? Because an ideal way to run a business, in my opinion, the way to have a great business and live a really easy life is sell the least amount of products that are the most profitable, and they're really easy to fulfill. And so when we're doing this clarification process, we want to start to think, we want to say, okay, out of our products and services, how many do we have? Which ones are the most profitable? Which ones are the easiest to fulfill? Once we get that list, how do we know that? Do we know that by using actual data? Like we can show it in the books or with some sort of measurable data that we've come up with? And then once we figure it out, what do we do now? And so that's the main thing right there, is identifying which products and services in your business are the most profitable, which ones are the easiest to fulfill, and doing as many of those as possible and the least amount of other ones as possible. And so what I want to do now, so I came up with some examples here, and I want to show you this as kind of a live example here. And so this is what we call, and once again, we're in the trust tree here. We're not saying anything or anything about that. We love all of our clients. We love all of our potential clients. Just showing you some real world examples of how stuff comes in on a pretty regular basis. And this isn't an actual client P&L, of course, for confidentiality purposes and all that good stuff, but we see this pretty often where we call this a one-line P&L. So if you look at it here, it comes in and it says total income, $500,000, which is great. This is a business bringing in $500,000 in revenue per year. Their cost of goods sold. So if they're a product business, that could be their inventory. If they're a service business, that could be their payroll. Then it shows their gross profit. Then we go down and we have all their operating expenses. And so salaries and wages, rent, utilities, all of your pretty typical like general and administrative expenses. And so the thing about this is it shows all the income that comes in on the top, and it shows the net profit on the bottom, which for a tax return compliance purposes, this would actually suffice. But from a measuring your data and understanding your business perspective, this P&L doesn't really tell you that much. What I want to know is, out of this $500,000, what products and what services make up that mix of revenue, so that eventually we can start tying those streams of revenue to the streams of expenses that match with them. And so this is what we call a one-line P&L right here. If you have one of these, that's okay. You got to start somewhere. The fact that we do have one is a step in the right direction. But this is what one looks like when you get a little more detail right here. And so this is the same business, if you will. If I can get this to come over. There we go. But it's just a little bit more granular. And so what we mean when we say that, it still has that total income of $500,000 here, still has that net profit of $140,000 at the bottom. But look at this. Up here, we have broken down by category, the different revenue streams of how the revenue actually comes into the business. And so for this purpose right here, came up $300,000 in product sales, $150,000 in service revenue, $50,000 in subscription income for our total income of $500,000. And so you can see here, all our expenses are the same, our net profit's the same, which means our margin's the same, but then we can start to understand a little bit more about what kind of business actually is this? Like, what are we doing here? What are we really trying to build? What are the profitable, easiest to fulfill activities that we can duplicate or replicate to make the business as profitable as possible? And so this really matters. So you can identify high performing revenue streams, you can spot underperforming areas, and then we can tailor our growth strategies based on what's working and what's not. So that's sort of one step better right there. Then if you want to get to where we're doing really good, we're getting lots of information and we're starting to really figure things out, we get to one of these right here. So this one is going to have a lot more detail on the income section. And so we see this a lot with clients where a lot of clients are very good about getting very detailed on the expenses, which is amazing. That's the second half of this. But for whatever reason, a lot of them don't put a lot of thought and time into setting up your books properly to identify the different streams of revenue as much as possible. So you want to get to where you have a pretty detailed income section on your P&L so you can really understand how much money's coming into your business, which at the end of the day is very important, right? And so just sort of for example purposes, this P&L right here still shows us that 500,000 in income, but it breaks it down between all these different categories. And so we'll go through them here in a bit, but just sort of for example purposes, the income section of this P&L is almost as big as this entire P&L, which shows all of the company activity, right? And we never want to overdo this. We never want to put things on there that aren't going to be beneficial or cause extra administrative work. But as you can tell, this is going to give us a lot more detail than this one is right here. So we get that out of there. And we look at this right here. So that same $500,000 business, these are broken down. These are their product sales. And you can see the mix between their online sales and their in-store sales for a total of 300,000. Their service revenue, they have consulting stuff. I would assume that's for getting new accounts or new client services or programs or things like that. Maintenance would lead me to believe that's for existing clients' accounts. That's the kind of stuff that you're going to have to offer there for a total of 150,000 in service revenue. Then we look at our subscription income. So 50,000 total, but 30,000 of that comes from the basic plan. 20,000 comes from the premium plan. And so when you look at this right here, if this were me and this were my business, especially where everything's going sort of in this post-COVID world that we live in and everything's going virtual, I would venture to say if we had the income section of this P&L the expense section of this P&L tied to all the income, I could almost guarantee you the online sales cost a lot more from an expense standpoint than the online does. And so the in-store sales you can see here are lower than the online sales. And so online sales probably have a lot less overhead than the in-store do. And you have in-store, you have things like rent, you have employees to manage the place, you have utilities, you have marketing expenses, you have all kinds of different things. And so when we look at this right here, the whole point of this is you want to start to break down the income revenue streams of your business as much as possible so it can tell you as much information as possible. So if you look here, out of the total product sales, a majority of them are coming from online instead of in store. When you look at the service revenue, a majority of it's coming from consulting as opposed to maintenance. And then who knows right here with the difference between the basic plan and the premium plan, what we would want to do is consider the amount of clients that we have on each one of those plans so we can start to get some per unit cost and figure out exactly what we have going on. And so this is a really good way to get clarity on revenue drivers in your business, help you with your targeted strategy. It'll help you enhance your forecasting and then give you actionable insights as to what you have going on. So those are just some real life examples right there of how this stuff could work. And I saw we had a few more people jump in. Thank you so much for joining us. If you have questions or emotional outbursts or anything during the presentation, pop them in that Q&A box. We'll make sure we get all your questions answered. We got time saved at the end for that as well. And we'll make sure we do it. The chat is disabled, but if you go over to where the Q&A box is, if you type anything in there, we'll make sure that we get those questions answered for you. And so that's a little bit about the basics. Where do we go from here, right? We start to incorporate this stuff. And so what do we do now? We start slowly making updates to our books. So you want to add the products and services that coincide with your website and your P&L as products and services in your QuickBooks Online or accounting software program. And so not to back up, and I'm not going to reverse all of the slides, but just to give you sort of a real life example, the intro slide that I was showing to all of you at the beginning of this presentation, it lists out our 4 main departments in our business. Those are the 4 revenue drivers of our business. So on our website, those are listed. Every time I do one of these presentations, that's what I start with. And in our P&L, it's broken out by bookkeeping income, tax prep income, tax planning income, and business consulting income. Then even further inside of there are subcategories that let us know, okay, out of bookkeeping, how many clients are on X plan? How many clients are on Y plan? How many clients are on Z plan? For tax prep, how many clients are we doing business tax returns for compared to how many clients are we doing individual clients for? And you want to get as detailed as we need to. Don't overdo it, obviously, but you want to get your P&L to where it tells you the information that you need to know to make valuable business decisions moving forward. And so as we're incorporating it, there's benefits too, right? Like I was saying, it's going to give you clarity on revenue drivers, let you know what is actually bringing the money into your business and how it's coming in. It's going to help you target your strategy. So kind of in the example I was just giving there, if we're a product sales business and 60 or maybe 80% of the revenue is coming in online as opposed to in our brick and mortar stores, that's going to probably change your strategy quite a bit and maybe mean that we need to tailor some things and tweak some things. And that's where all of this is leading, and it's going to help you forecast and then just have actionable insights moving forward. So you can really understand what your business is, where it's going, what you want it to be, and make it deliver that dream lifestyle that you were aiming for when you first started that business. And so that's a little bit about that. We're going to dive into KPIs. So KPIs, key performance indicators. There's a ton of them out there, and for everyone's business, these can be a little bit different. Wanted to give you some of the most popular ones that we help clients understand and dive into and really figure out. And one of them is their revenue growth rate. So this is essentially the comparison of how much revenue you do year over year in your business. And so using the example of what I showed you with that P&L right there, if that business did $500,000 in revenue in 2024, their goal was to do $600,000 in 2025, they would be aiming for a 20% growth rate, right? If they were wanting to go from $500,000 in 2024 to $1 million in 2025, that's 100% revenue growth rate. Understanding that and what your goals are is very important and can help you with forecasting moving forward. The next one's your profit margin. And so this is one we like to talk about as much as possible because for whatever reason, we see it quite often where entrepreneurs, business owners, dreamers, people with, overall just sort of big dreams and goals, they get really excited about the top line number, which is important, right? You have to have revenue to grow a business, especially if you want to grow a big business. But for whatever reason, they don't focus on that bottom number. And that's what, to me, is the most important at the end of the day. That's what you're actually taking home. That's what you're doing all this hard work for, is whatever that profit margin is the money that the business is actually producing on a regular basis. And so for the example that I was showing on the P&L there, that company's bringing in $500,000 in revenue, had $140,000 in profit. That's roughly a 28% profit margin, which is not bad considering, depending on which industry they are in, what kind of business, and all that sort of stuff. Not to convolute things too much, but going back to my example of a majority of their product sales revenue was coming in from online sales as opposed to in-person sales, maybe it would make sense to beef up the marketing to the online sales, decrease our expenses, in the in-person sales, so we could maybe cut out rent, some payroll, some utilities, other things like that, where we maybe can get a business like that to 600,000 in revenue with 300,000 in profit for closer to like a 50% profit margin. So understanding your profit margin is key to really turning your business into what you want it to be. Monthly cash flow, this is a big one right here. So understanding how much money your business actually needs to produce on a monthly basis to survive. This is extremely important in businesses like ours. Our business is a very highly seasonal business, right? Our tax preparation department in February, March, and April brings in a ton of money. Then it does again in September and October when all of the extensions come due. So us understanding how much monthly cash flow we need to operate the business year round is going to help us make better business decisions and help us better prepare for growth, for slower months, for different activities that we need to do to increase cash flow and those sort of things too. So understanding your monthly cash flow is basically how much money your business needs to operate every month without changing anything is a key performance indicator right there. Next one's free cash flow. So this is essentially how much money your business produces every year. So how much cash flow are you going to be left with at the end of every year? And once we get a real good handle on this monthly cash flow, that's going to lead you to, at the end of the year, understanding the free cash flow. As businesses get more sustainable, the longer they're around, the more systems and the more processes they get in place, that free cash flow number tends to be pretty similar, if not go up every year, which is great. So what you can start to do there is budgeting from an overall growth perspective of, hey, our business has $100,000 of free cash flow at the end of the year after paying me a salary, after paying me all of my distributions that I deserve or whoever deserves as the owners or the partners or the investors of the business. There's going to be X amount of money left. And let's just say that's $100,000. You might want to budget to use that for acquiring another business to do some hyper growth inside of your company, or acquiring more assets. Maybe you need more vehicles. You're a construction business, or a manufacturing type business. Maybe you want to invest in some more equipment that's going to feed one of your more profitable streams of revenue, so it can make you more free cash flow at the end of next year. Maybe you want to go on a trip to Hawaii. It's your business. You can do whatever you want with it, but understanding what the yearly free cash flow is a very important metric to me. The last one's customer lifetime value. So you'll hear this called LTV. This is essentially the average price that your customer pays times the average times they buy from you, or like in our case, the average length they stay with you, and you can come up with an average customer lifetime value. And so just for an example's purposes, if you come up with your average customer lifetime value is $10,000, you know that your business operates at a 28% margin in the example we were using there before. You could reasonably spend $1,500, maybe up to $2,000 in marketing expenses to acquire customers. You would still be operating at an 8% margin. And those are the kind of businesses that get really popular really fast and grow really fast there too. So at the end of the day, it's all about measurable data, so you can make informed decisions. Informed decision making is paramount. You want to have a big focus on your financial health. Once you do, that'll help you focus on your customers a little bit more. If you're not stressed out about cash flow, if you're not worried about certain things, you can become 100% customer focused, which is absolutely amazing in my opinion, because the more you focus on your customers, the more they're going to become patrons of your business and help you grow your business. Operational efficiency is key. And at the end of the day, you want to get a holistic view of the company performance. And so breaking down those revenue streams is paramount, in my opinion. The next step from there is to then tie the expenses to those streams of revenue. And then you have really good accounting and you have really good reports, and you can do all sorts of amazing things from a measurable data standpoint. So where do we go from here? If you're already tracking all this stuff and you're already doing this, then great, keep doing it. We would love to hear some success stories. We love when clients have really good books and sometimes can show us things about, hey, I set it up this way because I wanted to know per project or, per house that we're flipping, what the actual numbers were and those sort of things. So if you're already doing all this stuff, I would say keep doing it. That's absolutely fantastic. If you're doing the books, if you're not doing it and you're doing your books by yourself, the number one step would be to start adding products and services, right? If you have a one-line P&L, which is okay. We're in the trust tree here, right? We're not poking fun at anybody. We're not anything like that. But if you are doing the books yourself, and you have that one line P&L where it shows all the revenue on one line, you want to start to break that down. So you start in QuickBooks by adding different products or services, whatever they are, so you can start to break down the income as it comes in there. That would be your first step. If we do your books, then let's schedule a meeting and discuss this stuff. So a majority of the time that we spend with our bookkeeping clients is customizing their chart of accounts, really renovating the books on somewhat of a regular basis to show them the information that they want to know. So let's schedule a meeting. Let's schedule a time to discuss with your bookkeeper so we can get some insights, figure out what's important to you, because every business is so different. And at the end of the day, there's no right or wrong for this stuff too. Not to back up, but kind of like I was saying about the one line P&L, from a compliance and IRS standpoint, that's okay. The IRS doesn't require you or require us to put an incredible amount of detail on tax returns. They really just want to know what's the bottom number because that's the amount you need to pay taxes on. But from running your business perspective, from understanding your business, getting to where you understand monthly cash flow, annual free cash flow, this stuff is paramount and it's very, very important. And so if we do your books, we'd love to schedule a meeting and talk about that. If you want to have a free consult, we would love to do that too, and talk about how we can get more detailed on your bookkeeping, or if you're interested in our business consulting services, we would love to help you grow your business, scale your business, or turn it into whatever it is you decide to start it for in the first place. And so we'd absolutely love to do that. You can schedule a meeting from our website, which is actionaccountingusa.com. It'll go right to our calendar with one of our experts. And that's really what I've got for everyone today. So from here, we've got plenty of time left over. If you have questions, I would encourage you typing them in the chat and we can answer those. There's nothing too overly technical or nothing too small, I would say. So there's no right or wrong answers, but that is majority of everything we wanted to cover from an information standpoint. If you have questions, type them in there. I'll stick around and answer as many questions as we do have. I always kind of jokingly say, if nobody has any questions, that must mean that I did such a good job at covering everything so thoroughly and so enjoyably that nobody could actually have any questions about it. So just kidding, of course. If you do have questions, type them in there. We'll answer those. If not, we'll let everyone get back to their day here in just a little bit and we'll go on from there. But thank you so much for joining us. I really do appreciate it. I'll stick around for a few minutes just to see if anybody has any questions. Patty asked earlier, will we get a recording of this? Yes, you will. Patty, if you registered for the event, we send the recording out to everybody. We also host them on our website afterwards. So for anyone who missed any of our past events, you can go on there on the top. I think it says recordings or videos or something like that, but there's links to all of our existing events as well. And so hopefully you guys got some value out of this, gave you a little bit of insights as to things to do. If you have questions, pop them in there and I will make sure to answer those. If you don't, then that's okay too. We'll give you a few minutes back in your day and I'm gonna take a sip of water because I've been talking for 30 minutes straight. So. We'll hang out for just a few more minutes here. Thank you so much for everybody who took time out of their day. Like I said, we budget these for an hour, but we always leave time at the end for Q&A. So if you do have questions, type them in there. If you don't, I take that as a compliment. And thank you so much. It means the world that you take some time out of your day to support us and come here and learn a little bit about this stuff. I love talking about this stuff. I could do this all day long, but unfortunately we do have some work to do too. So if nobody has any questions or any other comments, we can wrap this up, give everyone a few minutes back in their day, and then we will see you all soon. So I don't see any more questions coming in. I'll hang out for another minute or two here. just to make sure if we do. If not, we will wrap things up. Yeah, I don't see anything coming in, so we'll go ahead and end it. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great day. We'll talk to y'all soon.